30. Everton v Chelsea 1978. Another infamous event. Due to the beating Everton suffered at the Battle of Kensington High Street, graffiti was sprayed on Lime Street Station saying, "Ordinary Chelsea," which apparently was code for all Scousers to join together to gain revenge for the cowardly Chelsea attack. Chelsea were unaware of this but still turned out in force, and in the Park Lane, away end infiltrated by Everton fans, there was serious crowd disturbances with knives and bottles being used. In the home end, Gladys Street, Chelsea tried to take it, but were beaten back by the Evertonians, and had to flee for their own safety. After the match, 3,000 Chelsea were attacked on the route back to Lime Street Station. Police tried to intervene but them and their horses came under attack. Chelsea were attacked at nearly every junction and apparently never been so happy to board a train. Lots of older Chelsea fans regard it as one of the worst beatings they ever took. 29. Liverpool v Man United, FA Cup semi-final, Goodison Park, Everton, 1985. Marred by violence, 2 fans were stabbed, and 2 policemen injured, while a flare was fired at United supporters and Jesper Olsen was struck by a missile while taking a corner. Major trouble after the game with thousands of Scousers attacking Man United fans whenever they could. West Brom v Millwall 1983. An infamous event for anyone who was present as 2000 Millwall attempt to gain access to the Brummie Road, Albion's End, but can't because of the fence. This makes them mad, and rioting ensues in and out of the ground. Newcastle v Rangers 1969, Fairs City Cup. Rangers fans riot in night of violence, over 100 injured. That night, Newcastle was under siege as violence erupted in all corners of the city. Rangers fans smashed their way through the streets after their team was trounced 2-0. Calls for assistance flooded police, ambulances, and hospitals. In a stadium brawl, more than 100 people were hurt, and the Fairs City's Cup contest versus Newcastle United was suspended for 17 minutes. Rangers supporters invaded the pitch amid chaotic scenes. Northumberland police reported 29 arrests at midnight, 24 of them were Glaswegians. Running brawls erupted from pub to pub. 26. Sunderland v Spurs 1978. Spurs fans got into the Sunderland Roker end, but sheer weight of numbers soon had them on the back foot, and they have to retreat onto the pitch and are escorted into the away end. Lots of trouble throughout the day from a massive Spurs turnout. Stoke v Man City 1998, relegation decider. A pretty grim day for both clubs as they were relegated to the 3rd division. Man City for the very first time in their history. How many Man City fans then would believe they would become the powerhouse they are today? There was a lot of trouble, both in the stands and after the match. The local police completely lost control of the occasion, with pitch invasions, missiles and fighting all day. 24. Stoke v Spurs 1978. Both had been relegated to the old Div 2, now the Championship. Both sets of fans invaded the pitch and began to battle. The game commenced after the pitch had been cleared, but large groups of supporters carried the battle on outside the Victoria ground after the match. 23. Everton v Southampton 1984, FA Cup semi-final Highbury. Major trouble at this game with cutters, causing a pitch invasion where fans fought running battles. Police horses were used by the heavily outnumbered police, but it took over an hour to restore order. No segregation at the train stations meant more trouble. At least 80 people were arrested. Man City v Spurs 1993. Pitch invasions, fighting on the terraces, riots in the surrounding streets. From reports it seems like Spurs held the upper hand, but obviously can never be sure. Man City fans can be seen invading the pitch. Man City v Chelsea 1984. For most City veterans, Chelsea stands out as the total invasion it was. Man City's home end, the Kippax, was taken and Chelsea held 3 sides of the ground. Pitch invasions, fighting in the terraces, running amok in the streets. An infamous Friday night out for the Chelsea in 1984. You can see the mass support in the YouTube video. Chelsea v Leeds 1982. A torrid affair where Chelsea fans invade the pitch 3 times to get at the Leeds fans. Police try to restore order, but it turns into one of the worst riots ever seen in a football ground, with numerous arrests and 27 people injured, 12 of them policemen. 19. West Brom v Leeds 1982. Probably the worst trouble ever seen at the Hawthorns was this match from 1982. Forum members and the pictures tell the story. I've never been more scared at a game as I was seeing Leeds fans throw everything they could at the thin blue line until the perimeter fence crumbled and hundreds of Leeds fans invaded the pitch in the second half. It's the first time I can recall seeing full-scale fighting inside and outside the ground in 37 years of following the Baggies. This tough-looking much older Baggy fan standing next to me said, "You'll be okay kid, as they'll never take the Brummie," and as I looked around, half the Brummie had disappeared. 18. Arsenal v Millwall 1988, FA Cup. 12,000 Millwall in the clock end and another 1,000 in the Arsenal North Bank. Fighting throughout the match in the North Bank and rioting outside the ground. Only 8 arrests unbelievably. (17) Chelsea v Middlesbrough, playoffs, 1988. Called the Battle of Stamford Bridge, for good reason. Chelsea were relegated and Borough promoted. Chelsea fans invaded the pitch and tried several times to get at the 5,000 celebrating Borough fans. Police horses tried to quell the trouble, but it was a losing battle. Here is what one Borough fan described. "I went to this game as a neutral and ended up in with the Borough fans. The pitch invasion and violence by Chelsea supporters at the final whistle was the worst I've ever seen inside a football ground. Hundreds of them charged out of the shed end, tearing up advertising hoardings and using anything they could find as missiles. If it wasn't for the fence in front of the away end preventing a full-on confrontation, I'm convinced people would have been killed that day. Luckily, I was right at the back, so relatively safe from the rampage. We were kept in the ground for around 90 minutes after the game until things had calmed down. But even then, there was major trouble outside the ground, with Borough's front line taking on Chelsea headhunters in running battles. It's difficult to believe now that something like this could happen at a football match." 16. Arsenal v Rangers, pre-season friendly, 1967. Police completely taken by surprise at 7,000 jocks arriving. Rangers either took or were given half the North Bank. Arsenal fans not too pleased with this. Fighting throughout the game, and several times referee stops the match due to the trouble. Amazingly, only 8 arrests, but lots of injuries and people thrown out of the match. 15. Norwich v Man United 1977. The Red Army terrorized almost everywhere they went these days, and Norwich were about to feel the full force of the mighty Red Army in a very bad day. The YouTube video shows hordes of Red Army fans swarming out of the ground to the waiting trains, exhausted with their day of rioting. (14) Chelsea v Sunderland, Milk Cup, 1985. We let Sunderland fan Java tell it. I have to admit, the Chelsea supporters that night were the most furious, hate-filled supporters I have ever seen, and that includes numerous visits to Millwall, Leeds, Birmingham, Borough and Sports Direct. I believe that the hospitalisation of a couple of their followers at Roker and the ensuing London media attention had riled them up, and Ken Bates, of course, chimed in with comments about how naughty our fans had been. Given the horde that Chelsea brought to Roker that night, it's ironic to say the least. The basic line was that Chelsea in 1985 were the worst of the worst, they had to protect their reputation, and this was the most important game they had played in a long time. 13. Man United v Rangers 1974. Another infamous day, with Rangers taking the Stretford end. The local newspaper did a story about the events. Red Army Governor Tony O'Neill talks about the match fighting in his book The Men in Black, inside Manchester United's football hooligan firm. 12. Crystal Palace v Birmingham 1989, promotion party. 9,000 Blues fans along with Zulus reap havoc at Selhurst Park dressed in fancy dress. Total carnage from the Zulus and even the Palace fans. They invade the pitch several times and attack the Palace fans wherever they can. Then battle it out with the police, who fail to restore order. (11) Millwall v Chelsea 1976. Chelsea nutters attempt to take the Millwall home end, Cold Blow Lane. 3 sections of Chelsea headhunters are attacked on all sides from the Millwall, and even Chelsea vets say they took a beating, but amazing they even tried. Here's the story from Chelsea fan. A small group of us entered the CBL in 1976-77. We were crammed into the highest corner, and our numbers were dwindling as more Chelsea were either snatched or quietly exited. I stayed for the majority of the game, but I had to leave near the finish. I wished I'd stayed in the CBL once I was out on the streets, because there were Millwall nutters everywhere. Some of them were old dockers in their 50s and 60s. 10. Chelsea v Millwall 1977. Millwall try to take the Chelsea shed but are beaten back into a corner of the stand where police remove them to their own end. Pitch battles continue around the ground and a couple of pitch invasions. (9) Spurs v Chelsea 1975, relegation decider. Chelsea invade White Hart Lane taking half the Spurs end with 2 pitch invasions and continuous fighting. Major fighting on the pitch. Both sets of fans obviously claim different things, but if you look at other YouTube videos of the actual match, when Spurs score their second goal, you can clearly see Chelsea fans massed in that end alongside the Spurs fans, and at the other end, you can also clearly see the Chelsea fans in that end too. (8) Bradford v Leeds 1986, Odsal Riot. A grim event less than a year after the Bradford fire that resulted in 56 people dead and 250 people injured, lots of them with serious burns. Leeds fans arrived at the temporary Bradford Stadium in large numbers, totally outnumbering the police, and a day of mayhem ensued. Leeds fans even turned over a chip van and set fire to it, then invaded the pitch, forcing the referee to suspend the game. Running battles with police all day long. 7. West Ham v Man United 1975. This is a famous match well documented for its crowd trouble. I believe most of the problems was overcrowding in the South Bank where the Notorious at the time, Man United fans were enclosed. But from what I understand, the West Ham South Bankers were attacking the Man United, also causing more overcrowding and lots of general trouble ensued. West Ham fan Andy told us, that day on the South Bank, I was there. Man United had a reputation at the time for destroying trains and town centres everywhere they went. They flocked to the stadium in enormous numbers on that day, hoping to repeat their performance from 1967, when they flooded the South Bank and defeated the Irons 1-6 on the pitch. (6) Millwall v West Ham 1972, Harry Cripps Testimonial. West Ham's ICF invade the Millwall's Cold Blow Lane end. After several skirmishes and pitch invasions, they are forced into a corner, but remain for the whole match under constant attack from the bushwhackers. A legendary battle according to people who were there. Some people who were there have likened the scene to a war zone between the hated foes. Pre-ICF, this was in the days of the Mile End mob of West Ham who entered the Millwall home section of the ground and stayed there until the end, so in their eyes a massive results against a top firm. My Millwall contacts say the Mile End mob were battered and defeated. The 2 sets of fans went to fight both inside and outside the Old Den Stadium, setting the stage for 30 more years of violence, in an atmosphere described by one witness as pure wickedness and something I had never encountered as a football fan. 5. Aston Villa v Rangers 1976, pre-season friendly. Rangers arrive with 8,000 fans and take or are given the Holt End, according to who you talk to. Fighting throughout the game, pitch invasions and serious disorder after the match. One policeman described it as more like a war zone than a football match. Nuff said, so many arrests they lost count. Sporadic outbreaks of violence marred the first half as Villa took the lead through a Dennis Mortimer goal, but the situation really deteriorated at half-time with hundreds of Rangers fans on the Holt End causing the crowd to spill onto the pitch to escape crushing. 7 minutes after the restart, a second goal for the home team provoked a hail of missiles and a pitch invasion with both sets of fans battling it out on the turf. The 2 managers Ron Saunders and Jock Wallace led their teams back to the dressing room, and the referee Derek Civil abandoned the game in the interests of safety. The human toll of the trouble saw more than 70 people injured at the match, 18 seriously. 2 suffered stab wounds, several broke bones and a number were treated for severe cuts and head injuries caused by missiles. 30 policemen were injured and 4 were taken to hospital, 1 with a suspected fractured skull. At the height of the battle, 130 police were deployed at Villa Park. 90 extra officers had been drafted into the city to cope with the trouble. 50 fans were arrested. Pockets of trouble continued in the city centre before finally Birmingham managed to divest itself of its unwelcome Scottish day trippers. 4. Burnley v Celtic 1978, Anglo-Scottish Cup. This was a major riot that is never talked about for some reason. I think because the cameras weren't there and not many photos exist of the mayhem that ensued on that night. 15,000 Celtic fans arrive and take the Burnley club and police totally by surprise. They are places alongside the fans on the stand called the Longside. After some chants of Rangers from the Burnley fans, the Celtic fans tear down the fence separating them and storm the Burnley part of the Longside. This forces the Burnley fans onto the pitch with the Celtic fans following them. What ensued was described as unbelievable by anyone who was present. Running battles with Celtic fans chasing Burnley fans and police out of the ground and using anything they could find as weapons, including parts of the torn down fence as spears, along with the concrete posts that contained the fencing. The referee had to suspend the game for the safety of the police and Burnley fans. 80 people were injured, about half were police, some with quite serious injuries. The Celtic manager even tried to calm down his own fans but to no avail. 3. Birmingham v Leeds 1985. Hooligans from Birmingham invade the pitch several times. The police tried to restore order on the pitch with horses. In total 145 policemen were injured, and 125 fans were arrested. At least 50 fans had to go to hospital. Tragically, 15-year-old Ian Hambridge lost his life after being crushed by a falling wall. Another major riot that seemed to go on forever, with Leeds fans trying to tear down their fence to try and get to the Brummies who were goading them. 2. Luton v Millwall, FA Cup, 1985. The Millwall Bushwhackers were involved in one of the worst incidences of football hooliganism in English football history during an FA Cup away match against Luton Town in 1985. After some crush problems in their end, they decide to invade the pitch. What followed was a riot of unprecedented proportions at an English ground. They attacked the police with seats and other missiles, and all this was viewed by the British public, some of whom didn't know this sort of thing went on. "81 people were injured, with more than half being police officers. One officer was hit by a concrete block and only survived after being given mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. 31 people were arrested, but the biggest surprise was that half of them were supporters of other London teams like Chelsea and West Ham. (1) Celtic v Rangers 1980 Scottish Cup Final at Hampden Park. A mass riot came about when Celtic fans invaded the pitch to celebrate their victory. One of them kicked the ball into the goal at the Rangers' end, so Rangers fans scaled the fence to get onto the pitch. This led to a mass invasion of the pitch and total war broke out. "200 were eventually arrested and the police were criticised for not having enough officers on duty, but most of them were outside waiting for any trouble that would have been expected after the match as per normal. Due to the length of time the riot takes place for, I believe it is the worst riot ever seen at a British football ground." Thanks for watching. Don't forget, we can't show some of the scenes as they would be too shocking on a YouTube video, plus no videos for older events because they simply didn't have cameras at all matches, can you believe? And all this is just our opinion, as you can't really factualize these events, can you? You can debate them, so please leave comments and subscribe to help our channel grow. Thank you.